What's up everybody, and welcome to a new video. And in this video we're gonna go over my notes for the title bar in VS Code. So what is the title bar? It's this horizontal bar here at the top of the window, and it contains several elements. And the first one is the menu bar. The menu bar is here on the left hand side, and it provides access to various commands ordered by these categories here. So in the first category you have commands revolving around managing files, windows and folders. Then here you have commands that revolve around editing. Then here you have commands with respect to working with selections or multiple cursors. Then in the view category you can access the different views of the activity bar or the panel. And you can also adjust the appearance of VS Code and the editor layout. Then here in the Go category, here you have commands revolving around code navigation. So go to file, for example, or go to definition and things like that. And then here in the Run category, there are commands around or for debugging. Then in the terminal, there are commands revolving around the terminal and running tasks. And then lastly, we have this help category where there are general commands for finding some help. So that's the menu bar. And one side note that I want to mention is with respect to the utility of the menu bar. Namely, most of the time, there are probably more convenient ways for executing command than using the menu bar. So for example, if you want to create a new file, then you would need to click here on File and then New Text File. So you would need 2 clicks, and you can do that more simply with the toolbar here in the Explorer with just 1 click. And then you could just create a file in this way, or you can also simply use the keyboard shortcut Control N. And that would also then create a new file in a more simpler way. But the menu bar, however, can still be useful for simply learning about what commands are actually available. So for example, if you go here to selection, there's a command called expand selection. And this one can be quite useful to select a whole indented block of code. So here, the keyboard shortcut is Shift, Alt and Right arrow. So if I use that here a couple of times, then I can easily select this whole indented block of code, or in this case, this whole indented block of the nodes. Okay, so this were the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to the menu bar. So next are the navigation controls. So those are these arrows here, and they enable you to navigate through the editor history. And this works within files and also across files. So to show you an example of that, let me open this file here. So here we are at the beginning of this file. And now let's put the cursor on this make move function. And here now let's right click that and then go to references. And then we put the cursor here on cycle, and then we use go to definition. And now you can use those arrows to navigate through the editor history, to navigate back and forth. So if we go back here to the cycle, another step, then we are here at this make move function. Then again, to the definition of the make move function, then to the beginning of the file, and then back to our nodes.md file. And obviously you can also go forward. Okay, so this is how you can use those navigation controls. Okay, so then the next element of the menu bar is the command center. And this is the search bar here in the middle. And this provides quick access to all of VS Code's functionality. So it's probably the most useful UI component in VS Code. So if you click into it, then you get here this drop-down list, and there are 2 sections. And in the first section here, there are different commands listed, or different types of commands. And the first one is go to file. So if we select that, then we can search for different files. So for example, if I then type code, then here we have again 2 sections. So the first section is recently opened files that match the search criteria, and then after that there are all the remaining files that match the search criteria. And one useful thing that you can do here is by appending a colon, you can specify to which line you want to jump within that file. So for example, if I say here 50 and then press enter, then I jump to line 50 in that specific file. Or another thing that you can do is, again, let's search for code. If you append an add symbol, then it lists all the symbols within that file, and then you can jump straight to that symbol. So here again, you can also search. So if I say search for make move and then simply select that, then we jump to the respective function. So that's how you can use this go to file functionality. And here again, I have also some side notes. So let's have a look at them. So here, go to file, side notes. And the first one is opening multiple files. So if you want to open multiple files, so let's search again for node. And here, if you click a file, then it simply opens that file. However, if you want to open multiple files and stay in that go to file functionality, then you can simply use the right arrow key. So if I press right arrow, then it opens this file in the background, and you can then keep searching for files. So let's also open notebook 2. And now I have opened both of these files. So that's the first side note. The second one is then the location of the file. Namely, when you're searching for a file, and if it's not in the root folder, then the location of the file is depicted next to the file name. So notes.md here is in the root folder, that's why there's no path. However, for notebook 1, this one is in demonstration example, it's Jupyter. So if I open this here, here's then notebook 1. Okay, so that's the second side note. Then the third one is the toolbar when hovering over an entry. So again, if we search for not, then here if we hover over an entry, then we have here this option to open the file to the side. So if I click that, then it opens to the side of this file. And the other option would be to remove the file from the recently opened section here. So if I remove that, then it's not here listed anymore. Okay, so that's the toolbar. And now the last side note is about the order of the results. Namely, in the first section, the results, there are only results that contain the exact sequence of characters. So if I search for not again, here there are only matches where there is an exact sequence of these characters. So only NOT. Then in the second section, we have different results. The first one are again then matches that contain the exact sequence of characters. So again, if I search for not, so this would be then here thumbnail notes.jpg, and then after that there are results that contain the individual characters in any in the given order. So for example, here this would be basic functionality. So we have NOT, and here exception breakpoints we also have NOT. And then after that, the results there are the results that contain the individual characters in any order. So if we look at this here, this contains O, T, and then N. And here as well, O, T, N. Okay, so those are the side notes that I wanted to mention. And with that now, we've covered all the notes that I want to mention with respect to the go to file functionality. So the next type of command is show and run commands. This is also called the command palette. And this is probably the most useful type of command, because in contrast to these other commands here, which have a specific use case, so go to file, for example, search for text, or go to symbol in editor, this is a more general purpose type of command. So with it, you can search and execute any command in VS Code, i.e. you can execute any functionality of VS Code. So if you want to use it, you can select it or simply type here this bigger than sign. And then here again, you have a drop-down list with different sections. So in the first section here, you have the recently used commands. And then if I scroll down, here are the other commands, i.e. all the other remaining commands. And as you can see, there are quite a lot. And here, just as a side note, with this gear icon here, you can configure a key binding if there is no key binding for a specific command. Okay, so now just to show you what you can do with the command palette, I'm going to just show you some examples. Okay, so for example, let's first create a new file. And before I do that, let's again look at this drop-down list here. The keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-P. So that's what I'm using. So Control-Shift-P. And now let's create a new file. So if I type new, then you have this command create new file. So let's select that. And then you can select what file type you want. So let's make it a Python file. And then here, let's save that. And now let's add another cursor, for example. So Control-Shift-P and then add cursor. So add cursor below or above. So let's use below. And now let's write print hello world. And now if I select this hello world here, now let's transform this into a title case. So again, Control-Shift-P and then let's simply search for title. So here we have the command transform to title case. Now we've transformed that, and now let's just run this file, and therefore again Control-Shift-P and then search for run, and then here we can use this command Python run Python file in terminal. So if you run this, then you can see we've now run this file in the terminal. So those are some examples how you can use the command palette for editing, but you can also use it for interacting with the UI. So for example, if I go to this file again, let's say I wanted to see the minimap, then Control-Shift-P and then search for minimap. And then here we have the command view toggle minimap. So if I toggle this on, then here we have now the minimap. I can also toggle it off again. What you also can do is you can, for example, change the color theme. So if I search for color, then we have here color theme, and then you can search, for example, you can pick another color theme. But let's stick with this. What you also can do is, for example, open the keyboard shortcuts editor. So if I search for keyboard, then we have here preference open keyboard shortcuts, and then here are all the keyboard shortcuts. And what you also can do, for example, is here in the toolbar we have this collapse folders button. So to collapse all those folders, this you can also do with the command palette. So if I open that, then simply search for collapse. Then we have here this command collapse folders in Explorer. So let's execute that, and now all the folders are collapsed again. And what you also can do is simply search for different or see what commands are available, for example. So if I open the command palette and type, for example, file, and then here scroll down, here I can then see all the commands that are available with respect to files. Or if I, for example, search for terminal, then here are all the commands available that you can see that all the commands that are available for the terminal. Okay, so those are some examples of how you can use the command palette. And those are also the main points or the main notes that I wanted to cover with respect to the command palette. But again, there are also some side notes that I want to mention, and they are as follows. So the first one is that the command palette encompasses the other types of commands. So for example, here we have this go to file command. This we can also access via the command palette. So if I go to command palette and then search for go to file, then you can see we have this command here listed, and this is the go to file command. So that's the first side note. The second one is then that the listed commands are context specific. So for example, if I open the command palette and then search for format, then you can see here that we have this format document or format selection commands. However, those are only available when there is an editor open. So if I open, for example, a new window with Control-Shift-N, here there's no editor open. And here if I search for the format command, then you can see the format document or format selection commands are not available here because there's no editor open. So that's the second side note. The third one is that extensions might add new commands. So for example, I have installed the Jupyter extension and Python extension. And if I open the command palette and search for Python, then you can here see some of the Python commands. Or if I search for Jupyter, then you can here see those are available Jupyter commands in this context. And then the last side note is that the command palette provides an easy way to find specific functionality. So for example, if I open a Jupyter notebook, sometimes what you might want to do is to transform this notebook into a Python script. So if you want to do that, you will need to remember to go here to this toolbar, to the overflow menu, and then here export as Python script. So let's say you don't remember that, you can also do that very easily via the command palette. So if I open the command palette and then simply search for Jupyter Python, then you can see here, here's this command, Jupyter export to Python script. And that's what I mean by that you can easily find specific functionality. So you don't have to remember where it is within the UI. And you also don't have to remember how the command is specifically called. I just search for Jupyter and Python. Okay, so those are the side notes that I wanted to mention. And with that, now we've covered all the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to the command palette. Okay, so the next type of command is search for text. So this you can use with the %sign. So simply type that or select the command. So if you type the %sign, then you can enter your search term. So for example, if let's enter here show, and then we get this drop-down list where there are the files listed. So notes.md, for example, code navigation.py, and then underneath that there are the search results. And if you want to jump to a specific search result, simply press enter or select it. So let's press enter, and then it jumps to the respective file. Okay, another thing that I want to mention with this command is that let's again search for show. Here on the right hand side you have these icons where you can open the respective file. So here, or code navigation.py, or you have here this magnifying glass, and this then opens, as it says here, the search view. So if I click that, it opens the search view, and this is already populated then with the search term. So those are the main points that I want to mention with this search for text functionality, but there are also some side notes. And the first one is that this functionality searches across all files of the workspace. So in that sense, it's more similar to this search view here than to the search within file functionality, which you can exit with Control F. So this only searches within a file, whereas this here searches across all files of the workspace. Okay, so the second side note is that the search term starts immediately after the %sign. So for example, let's use this again, and let's again search for show. And here, if I enter a space before that, then we get different results. For example, this search example show result is not shown anymore if I enter this space. Okay, so those are the commands, the notes that I wanted to mention with respect to the search for text command. So the next type of command is open quick chat. And this is related to GitHub CoPilot features. And as I said in the first video of the series, this is part of those additional topics here that I'm not going to cover in more detail. Okay, so then therefore let's go straight to the next command, which is go to symbol in editor. And to show you how that works, let me open another file. So let's go to editor and then your code navigation. And now let's open this go to symbol command. So you can either select it again or simply type here the add symbol. And what this does is it creates this list here with all the symbols within the currently active file. So in this case, with all the symbols in code navigation.py. And then if you want to jump to a file, you can either select it here, or you can click this icon to open it to the side. So let's select show, for example, then it jumps to show. And here again, I have some side notes. The first one is that the drop-down list is searchable. So again, let's go to Code Navigation on Pi, then open here this command. And now if I type MA, for example, then the list is filtered down to the results that only match those that search criteria. And then the second side note is that if you add a colon after the add symbol, then the symbols are grouped by kind or by the type of symbol. So if I again open that and now type in a colon, then you can see now all the symbols are grouped here by function. So all the functions first and then all the variables. And those are all the nodes that I wanted to cover with respect to the go-to symbol in editor functionality. And then the last two types of commands are start debugging and run task. So start debugging is simply another way of starting the debugger, and run task allows you to run tasks. But again, just like I mentioned in the first video, this is also part of those additional topics. So that is not something that I'm going to cover in more detail. And then the last type of command is called more. And this, if you select that, simply lists all the available commands. So the ones that we've already seen before. So for example, show and run commands or go to symbol in editor, but also new ones. So for example, this one here with the colon allows us to go to any line within the currently active file. So for example, if I say line 5, then it jumps to line 5 within this file. And another command that might be useful is this with the pound symbol that lets you go to any symbol in the workspace. So if you select that, it doesn't list all the symbols, but you can search them. For example, if I type in an S, then here we can see this show function that we've seen earlier from the code navigation.py file. And then another example command that you could use is here this edit command. This lists simply all the opened editors. And then the last example would be, for instance, this term command. So this lists all the opened terminals. And that were my notes for this more command. And lastly, here's also a side note, and this is about accessing commands without a default keyboard shortcut. So for example, if I open here the commands, and here you can see that, for example, the command palette has the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Shift+P. However, the search for text command doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. So instead of clicking into the search bar and then selecting search for text, an easier way what you can do is simply use this Ctrl+P shortcut, because this go to file functionality doesn't have a symbol attached to it, and then type in this %sign. So if I say Ctrl+P and then %sign, then I get to this search for text command. Or another example, if you type in term and then space, then here you get this command that shows all the available terminals. Okay, so this is the side note. And with that, now we have covered all the available commands here in this command center. So now I just quickly want to mention this second section here of this drop-down list when you click into the search bar. Namely, this simply here lists the recently opened files, i.e. this is the same list that you get when using this go to file command. And with that now, we've covered all the nodes that I wanted to cover with respect to the command center. So now the next element of the title bar are the CoPilot controls, and they are these ones here. And again, they are part of the additional topics that I'm not going to cover in more detail. So let's go straight to the next element, which are the layout controls. So these are these 4 buttons here. The first one is to customize the layout, and this will be covered in more detail when we talk about UI customization. Then we have the next button is for toggling the primary sidebar. Then we have a button for toggling the secondary sidebar and a button for toggling the panel. And then the last elements of the title bar are the buttons to minimize, maximize, and close the window. And with that now, we've covered all the nodes that I wanted to cover with respect to the title bar. So we have reached the end of this video, and in the next video we're going to go over my notes for the activity bar. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.